Watch and burn.
Hey everyone, so tonight I want to clean up something that I probably should have done with the last batch of them. I suppose that doesn't really matter because these are all going to be shown completely out of sync anyways. But I did a whack of books last night that I wanted to discuss, and I completely neglected to talk about Tarantino's novelization of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I absolutely love this book because I absolutely love the movie. That is pretty much next to Death Proof. That's my favorite Tarantino movie. This is like I like this more than Death Proof, and I thought Death Proof was amazing. I know that that is everybody's least favorite Tarantino movie, including Tarantino himself, but I really liked Death Proof. I liked how it was his car movie, like, and it was his tribute to like Bullet and like the French Connection, with like the wild stunt work with Zoe Bell being like strapped to the front of the car while Kurt Russell's chasing them, and how that entire sort of dance that they did was so well shot and it was so dangerous that I don't understand how anybody couldn't love that, but apparently nobody does. So, anyways, doesn't matter. This was great. I will say though, he does have a tendency to overwrite. The pilot episode of Lancer in here is not the pilot episode. Sorry, the episode of Lancer that Leonardo DiCaprio is in. It's fleshed out in full. Like there's 40 or 50 pages dedicated to that story that took place in that episode of that show, and it was fun and it was a worthwhile read, but it really didn't bring anything to the overall story about Cliff Booth or God. I love Cliff. I love Brad Pitt. I've loved him for decades, and I thought that character. I mean, he had so many layers. Like he'd done so much with his life. He was a war hero. He considered becoming a pimp. I didn't see that coming. He killed a few people, including a couple gangsters in a cafe this one time, just to see if he could get away with it. And that's how he got his dog. He ended up killing the guy who gave his dog to him, and he got away with that as well. And the novel does clear up that, yes, he did in fact kill his wife, but as he puts it in the book, um, he didn't do it. His finger did. He had the harpoon and he had it facing her, and he said that he immediately regretted his decision, or his finger's decision, I suppose. And while they were waiting for the Coast Guard to show up, he had to hold his wife together, and they spent those hours discussing how they fell in love. And yeah, so for everybody out there who didn't know, Cliff does in fact kill his wife. There was that was what we were led to believe in the movie, but technically we didn't find out one way or the other. Well, now you know. Cliff Booth killed his wife. I hope I'm looking at the camera on, I mean the lens on the second camera here. I can't really see it. These lights are incredibly bright. But yeah, the other thing, this book just mostly, it's a little out of sync with the movie. It opens up, for example, with Rick meeting his agent, played by Al Pacino in the movie, right at the beginning of at the beginning of the book, whereas in the film that doesn't happen for a little bit. And there are things like that, and including there are scenes that are in this that were shot for the film, but they ended up getting cut because the movie, as I think Margot Robbie originally said, there's a 5 hour version, and I believe there's a 20 some odd hour version, and that Tarantino was even considering for a while turning it into like a Netflix miniseries with Rick and Cliff, and or the further adventures of Rick and Cliff, which I would have loved. I hope that he does someday. The rumor is that he will release the 5 hour version. I hope he does, because I want to see Tim Roth, because his entire performance was cut from the film. But it would be nice to see that. But I'm talking more about the movie than I am the book. I think my favorite thing about this book is just that this is like Tarantino gushing about the era that he loves. And there's so much history in here. Like, it's essentially like a who's who of the music and movie industry from this period. And he writes for these real people as as if he knew them, which he couldn't have because most of them were dead by the time he wrote the book. And there's no way, even had he known them, he would have known them this well to be able to write about them. But he did it anyways, and I love that about this book. I love how it's one giant history lesson and one giant love letter to this era of filmmaking and music. And Tarantino doesn't really, he's not pulling any punches here. This is something that he's clearly very passionate about. So much so that apparently he has since written a Rick Dalton autobiography. And apparently it's going to be published at some point. That's exciting. I would love to see him publish something to do with Cliff, but I know that stuntmen don't receive the same kind of attention that an actor would, especially an actor as famous as Rick Dalton was from this era. So when Rick Dalton's autobiography comes out, I will be rushing out to read that, as I'm sure a lot of people out there will. Apparently, too, Tarantino wrote a book about filmmaking in the 70s, where he wrote a series of essays regarding it, and that was supposed to come out last summer, but it never happened, so I don't know what's going on with that. But I absolutely loved this. This was an easy read. It was a quick read. I knocked this out in a couple days because really I couldn't put it down. I love this era myself. I love the period. I love the movies. I love the television. I love the fashion. And they're all on full display here. And like I said, it's also one giant history lesson. If you care about the music and movies from this era, there is a wealth of information provided here, almost to the point where you could argue that aspects of this are nonfiction, which they are because the real people involved existed, and I'm sure the information is on point, especially when he's discussing like the DJs, the popular DJs of the time. If you have any doubt, you can always look them up because everybody has a pocket computer nowadays. This book was incredible, and like I said, it's one giant love letter to the 60s, and I do prefer the way this... I love how... I think the other thing, too, was that the majority of this book takes place after that Cliff and Rick deal with the Manson's followers, that come to kill them. That's sort of already in the rear view. Rick alludes to it here and there, but other than that, it's the movie... It's completely out of sync with what happened in the film. The film's conclusion, of course, was the Manson family showing up with the helter-skelter bullshit and getting their asses handed to them. But like I said, in the book, that's already happened. And there's a number of other things that happen in this book that I don't want to talk about here because this has already gone on long enough. But yeah, I love this. I loved everything about it. Tarantino's a genius. And God willing, he writes more books. And I'm sure he will because, like I said, the Rick Dalton autobiography has apparently already been written. And I'm looking forward to that whenever that eventually finds its way out to the public. But yeah, so look, I'm going to go. And again, I'm looking into the lens. And thank you so much for sitting with me throughout all this. If you enjoyed this and you did make it to the end, do something nice for someone. Like, for example, the next time you're at Walmart and they ask to give $1 to Red Cross or whatever the charity is that they're asking for, give the $1. Because I can't tell you how many times I've been at Walmart and the people beside me just skip it. It's $1. I mean, who cares? So yeah, like I said, if you liked this, do something nice for someone. And thank you so much. And don't forget to like and subscribe, yada, yada, yada. And have a good night. I just wanted to say thank you for making it through the entire video. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to remind everyone one more time, even though I've probably already done this in the video that you just watched, to please click the like button as well as the subscribe button because it helps this channel grow. And thank you for hitting like and subscribe. And we will see you guys really soon.